Okay, so this is Think Movement, Finding Common Ground, episode 2, looking at the idea of masculinity. I have Rufus here from Maine and Mike kind of from all over, but is now in Georgia, correct?
Alabama right now.
Alabama. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let these guys introduce each other. Mike in Alabama, go ahead.
I'm Mike Dubois. I live in North Alabama right now. We were planning on going back to Georgia from Oregon, but we stopped in Coleman and it's beautiful and we love it. And so we just stayed. I'm a retired professional mixed martial artist. I still train martial arts for fun and for health reasons. I'm currently a cowboy, I guess you would call it. I design cattle working systems and I install them, and I basically just try to keep the cows in and the cowboys out. And that's pretty much it, just simple.
Yep.
Cool. Rufus?
Yeah, hi Mike. I'm Rufus. I'm in Deer Isle, Maine. And I'm currently between things at the beginning of a fishing season. For the past 2 years, I've been working on a lobster boat.
Nice.
And yeah, it's been nice. It's been a lot of learning. And I think what I'm excited to talk to you about is both what Chris mentioned, just the fighter ego in there. And I've been talking with Chris a little bit about how I've brought a mixture of my own movement stuff, like going back to wrestling from high school and rock climbing a little bit, and different parts and pieces. I identified with your description on the Think movement about sort of assembling knowledge from a lot of places, and then specifically that transition to the workplace, and that both from the ego perspective of it and going from that training. And I actually think the lobstering world, there's a lot of aspects of it that look a little bit like martial arts, but and there is some language around that, but mostly it's I'm finding not a whole lot of dialogue about wellness and self-care in the way that you're talking about with the injury piece. And just I really I'm drawn to the way that you found your way back to BJJ and to martial arts for recovery and health. And yeah, that both and to me in your story is really, really fascinating.
Wow, thank you.
I would say, yeah. Well, and also I think because of the ego part of it, that's another part of the learning in the fishing world, is there's a lot of stereotypes about it being this macho environment, and certainly that's present. But actually, I was sharing with Chris some of the coaching along the way I've gotten has been about things someone who taught me was well, you're going to become a hand fetishist, because if you're throwing your hands into things that want to bite you all day, you're going to have to take care of them. And so there's a little bit more of a softer ethos that's behind the rah. And I wondered if that was true in the fighting world too, maybe.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's what you just said about hands, of course. I mean, if you're making money with these, you got to take care of them, and
yeah.
Knuckleheads like me, I go out and I hit the heavy bag with no hand wraps, no gloves on, just out there being hard ass, being tough as I can be, and that's how you get boxing fractures. That's how you get a boxer's break. Those are tiny little bones in there. I mean, you're taking large muscles, biceps, triceps, pectoral muscles. You're using those to propel the smallest bones that you have at the biggest bone somebody else has.
Oh.
That's not a very good game plan for longevity. Same with kicks. I mean, think about taking your glutes, hams, and quads and throwing a tiny foot full of little tiny bones at somebody's thighs or knees or elbows or hip bones. When you connect with those, I mean, there's times where I have flare-ups where my bones in my feet will just ache for a week at a time, and I'll just limp. And then limping causes the knee to hurt. Then the knee hurting causes the low back to hurt. And then I'm 4 weeks into just trying to not hurt anymore because of a broken bone in my foot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
from fighting again, or
Yeah, just from fighting, from
Yeah.
a kick landing on an elbow by accident, or a kick
Yep.
landing on a hip bone by accident.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're trying really precisely to place those. It's less random than it looks to the unintelligent eye in that way.
The kicks that you hear audibly are nothing. That is a foot slapping a piece of meat. The kicks that you don't hear are like that of a baseball bat hitting your thigh. You see what I'm saying? There's not going to be sound, but it's going to hurt really bad.
Yeah.
A smack against your arm, that sounds bad, but it's nothing.
Yeah.
Bone against bone doesn't make noise, but oh, it makes for pain.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I've been learning about that in a different way. Like I mentioned, I don't have much fighting history, right? Like schoolyard style, and like I was on a wrestling team for a little while. I drifted away from it because I couldn't really manage my own, like, I don't know, I didn't have the right mesh of a trainer, right? Like I think I could have found a better connection there. But in the fishing world, certainly, like you're standing on a moving platform all day, and your work environment is this big aluminum box, like 6-7 feet by 4 feet, and that's where like the bait is on top of it, and you're trying to deal with it. And like when you knock bone into things, yeah, it takes some time. That's something I've been talking with Chris about on the like wellness front, of just like, I think similar, like when you're trying to minimize impact at the same time that you're trying to deliver more impact, right? And I'm trying to not have any impact with anything in the fishing world. It's like, I don't want to hit things, but when you do, you learn a little bit better and better. And that's been like, as I'm getting more familiar with and mapping that environment, and it's had a physical impact, I'm having less injury in the hand, and the day-to-day gets easier. I was kind of curious about that actually in your fighting career, because in the article that you wrote that like drew me in, and that's the other aspect of you that I think is really awesome, is like both fighter and worker are like two categories that aren't really like thought of as expressive and like talking about themselves and this stuff very much. And you're like, I don't know, you do, and it just like goes to show for me, like, yeah, like we can participate in this, I guess. But you were talking about that like level from when you started as a fighter and taking those beatings, right? And then starting to deliver them. And I was wondering about the like sort of plateaus as your physicality moves through that world, and the decisions, like when you're talking about cutting weight, of like what you're thinking about when you were doing that, and what was driving that. And yeah.
Let's see. Let's kind of start off from the beginning.
Sure. Yeah.
I grew up. I had a stepdad that I really didn't like because he made me work hard. He had his own business, and we had to work cutting grass, cutting trees. We hauled pulpwood out of the forest when we were, second, third grade during the wintertime when there was no grass to cut. So we just came from just a real hard-working background. Grew up working really, really hard. We were kind of poor, and so we had to maintain a certain level of work just to maintain our living. So I would say the worker in me is what made me a good fighter, because I had this background of, you just have to work hard. If you just continue to work hard, everything will work out. Everything will fall in place. Everything happens for you, the person that continues to work hard. If you ever, like, there's this saying that, you can plant, well, I don't know how it goes, something about a farmer, plants all this stuff, and, he doesn't know how much he's actually going to harvest off the plant. But the guy that plants nothing knows that he's going to harvest nothing. And so if I'm getting 10% return on my work, if I just do more work, my 10% will get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yep.
And so when I went into fighting, I didn't have any skill. I didn't, like I said, we were poor. There was no Karate Kid studio where I grew up. We didn't have a wrestling team.
Right.
if we got in fights, it was with our brother or our cousin or the kids in the trailer park, or fighting was something that when I went to school and I found out that other kids got to fight one-on-one instead of having to fight their brother and his friend. Oh man, fighting was awesome. So, I came from that background. When I got to fighting and didn't have any skills, all I had was, I'm just going to be tougher than you. Like, you're going to get tired of hurting me before I get tired of getting hurt. That's what it is, and so by going into fighting with a worker's mentality of, I'm just going to outwork everybody. By showing up more than everybody else, that's how you get good. So you can learn from Steven Seagal, or you can learn from Stephen Mitchell, the guy down the street, right? It's the same martial art that you're learning. It's how much do you put in as to how much you're going to get out. And that's, that's what I learned working. What you put in is what you get out. And so after fighting, it's time to go back to work. There's no problem. There's no misstep. I don't have to, there's the only thing that I had to really slow me down when I first started, when I started doing this whole cowboy thing was, I had to remember how ratchet straps worked. That was it. But as far as like getting out there and, grabbing the post hole diggers and digging a hole and putting a post in and building a fence and, running cattle, like I never worked cattle growing up, but it's just work. So as long as you're willing to work, you can be anything or do anything. I've never been on a fishing boat other than like a bass boat catching brim in a river, but I know that if I was to show up with you tomorrow to work, I wouldn't know what I'm doing. I would do what I'm told, and I would do that to the best of my ability until I was told to do something else. And so that's kind of how I look at every task or every challenge, or I'm not a guru of any kind. I get mad, I get frustrated, I have road rage like you would not believe. I just really don't like bad drivers. I love blinkers. I don't like bad drivers. So I mean,
you might find a good home here in your aisle. There's a strong stereotype of local style driving, and I do confess that like that is probably my worst like asocial habit is driving too fast, because I'm going like in these past 3 years I'm going to meet my captain at 3 a.m. So like the road is open, the road is yours, right? But in the summer here we have a strong seasonal population that comes through, so it goes from like my whole life I've grown up with the 5-minute drive then takes 25 minutes, half hour. And in the summertime, like from what you're saying, the worker perspective, right? Of like, if you're the person working 2 jobs, which a lot of people are, and trying to get between the 2 of them, it's like, I understand the road rage. At the same time, it's like, oh, it doesn't feel good whenever I feel it. Like, gosh, it takes me a minute to cool down. And that's been something in the learning to control that for me in the fishing world. Like I think you were also saying in some of your writing about like that fighting might save you from yourself, and that's been the experience for me with fishing. Is I came into fishing in a hard personal spot, and through the sort of necessity of like telling Chris, like in the peak season it's 6 day a week 12-hour days like of being on the boat, like doing pretty fast paced stuff, and you're like, okay, like I'm gonna have to learn to edit out some of that ego, like when I would get so frustrated at myself when I would make little mistakes, right? Like I was telling Chris, one of the main operations on the boat is to load this needle. It's like a little mini sword with the bait, and then you're putting it on a string, and you've got your needle free that you go reload over here. And I lost 7 overside the boat in the first season. Like I was having horrible grip problems where like my hand was seizing up. I wasn't really accommodated to the work yet. And that embarrassment of like, coming from a different but similar working background, like I would say I was a bit lazier than you as a young person. I was like being asked to work and finding ways to to get out of it. But the embarrassment of like, I just lost my boss's tool, like, ooh, like, and so I eat that cost, right? And I get to see the body cost of like not learning. It's like, oh, I lost 7. Like, okay, it adds up. I need to like try to be a little more careful and like not get so angry at myself. I don't know. It's just been I think that dynamic is what I was picking up on in your work and hearing you speak to a little bit. And that like, but I think also the transition out of fighting that I'm interested in is like, you mentioned going away from like camp and training with your friends, and like how that's something that like, from the outside perspective, from the like workaday perspective, looking in at the fighter athlete, right? And that season is like, it looks really appealing. You're like, you get to like eat what you want and like run around all day and like wrestle with your buddies and like, yeah, there's some hits, but like that looks pretty fun, you know?
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, hey,
what was the
I get it.
reality of like,
Because when I first started and I was looking in and I was thinking like the biggest mistake I ever made was walking into an MMA gym the very first time and saying, I want to be a professional fighter. Do you know what kind of target that puts on your back? When everybody in there is already a fighter and you're a meat bag with no skills.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying about the embarrassment thing.
Yeah.
Like that's just a man thing. That's just all, like if you're a man and you screw up, there's a thing inside you and you feel it, and it's like somebody burning you with an iron or something. You're like, oh shit, I messed up. Like, I'm supposed to be a man. I'm supposed to lead the way, and like that's like you've got this. Everybody in there in the back of their head is supposed to be the hero of their own movie. If you're not the hero of your own movie, then you're like, there's a problem there. Mm-hmm. Like you need to start acting like the hero of your own movie to make yourself the hero of your own movie.
Yeah.
But that's, as kind of like a masculinity thing, like you should have a picture of this, thing that you want to be in the back of your head, and you want to live up to that thing. And that guy doesn't make mistakes, and that guy doesn't lose tools, and that guy doesn't, I remember the first time I ever installed hardy board siding on a house. It's planks of concrete. It's really thin.
Yeah.
I broke.
Don't carry them that way.
Yeah, no, you don't carry them at all. You drag them because they snap when you pick them up. And it took me $4 boards before I learned that you don't pick them up.
Yeah.
So $40 into my first install, oh God, this is how you move hardy board.
Yeah.
So I completely understand that. And then, the thing, when you make a mistake fishing and you lose something, that really, like, oh gosh, one, it's the embarrassment. Two, you don't have that tool anymore. So now you're shorthanded on what you need. Correct. In fighting, when you make a mistake, like when I don't lose a tool when I make a mistake. I lose my life. Mm-hmm. I get choked out. I have to tap out and say, hey, you killed me, buddy. You win. Like that's because the only thing that's going to make me tap out, the only thing that's going to make me stop is if you put me in a submission hold or, something that puts me in danger where I cannot no longer continue to fight.
Yep.
When you can no longer continue to fight in the real world where there's no referees and there's no, code of conduct.
Right.
You're saying you got me, you killed me, I'm dead.
Yeah.
So when you make a mistake, before it became a sport as a martial art, it's life and death. And if you go into a fight with that mentality of like, this is actually a life and death thing, like, because you can die, like you can take a wrong shot, or you can fall, or you can get slammed. Lots of things happen. Boxers die and they got big pillows on their hands. Mm-hmm. So, making mistakes, that's kind of, that's ingrained in us to not want to make mistakes. Sure. Even before we started you know, working on fishing boats and stuff. Like when we were kind of evolving from the primordial ooze, you know, for a man to make a mistake was to get eaten by a tiger or was to fall off a cliff, or you see what I'm saying? So as we've evolved, it's kind of ingrained in us to not want to make mistakes, whether you're a fighter or a fisherman or any man is anyone with a masculine mentality of, I have to protect my family. I have to I have to be a man. I have to create an atmosphere for my children or my wife. I have to do these things. Right. And so, I mean, it's not really something that you can just take out of a person because it's 2020 and you don't like the idea of it. I mean, if you could be a stay-at-home dad and not provide for your family at all, you're still going to have that inner desire to protect your children, to protect your wife, to protect your property, to do all these things that you think in your subconscious mind that a man is supposed to do. So I think that whether it doesn't matter who you are, you're gonna, if you screw up, you're gonna feel bad about it. And the thing is you've got to learn. It's funny. I'm reading this book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Pardon my language. But the guys, you know, the author talks about like, hey, you get stuck in this loop where you're like, oh, I'm inadequate. Oh crap, I'm such a piece of crap for saying that I'm inadequate. Oh, no, I'm a piece of crap for saying I'm a piece of crap. It's the feedback loop from hell. Now you're just stuck in this loop where you're just a big piece of crap because you don't know what's going on. You've got to find the exit ramp from that. You've got to say, hey, these are the things that I care about. These are the things that I don't care about. These are the things that I've learned from and let go. These are the things that I learned from and hold on to.
Yeah. That's been, there's a lot in there that I want, like so many directions. One is the place of, you were writing too about ego not having a place in learning. And I think when I think of those mistakes and that sort of like ingrained pattern and script that like, I don't know where I learned it really, but like, I know it's not really helpful in learning. Like you have to be willing to make the mistake to learn it all. Like you can't, you know, if I was in your shoes, like when you're starting out going into the fighting gym, right? Someone would be like, okay, go hit that bag. And I would be like, oh, you're all watching? Like, I don't know the last time please don't. But you have to be willing to do it, right? And have to be willing to know that you're going to have a teacher there, right, who's not going to like hate on you for it. And that was a dynamic with my captain is a pretty good, like, he's got a pretty good hold on his temper and his self, right? But like the stereotype, right, of that and the worlds that I hear about of peers is like the number of people in my position that are putting up daily with the captain that just wants to like yell and yell and yell. It's like, it doesn't work really on the other side of it. Or like maybe it works for some people, but like I don't know what your experience is with trainers or what. But I wondered if you could talk about that, the ego relationship to learning.
Actually, it's funny, you know, there's a guy, you may have heard of it. If you watch the UFC, if you're any sort of fan of
the UFC,
a little bit.
Not a whole lot.
There's an old school guy.
Tell me who's interesting.
Oh, you know, nowadays, since I stopped fighting, I don't watch MMA anymore. It gets my blood pressure up and I'm sizing up everybody that's my size and I'm thinking about how I could kick this guy's ass. And I just need to stop and worry about cows, not fight.
Yeah, I hear you.
So,
I hear you.
When I was on this TV show called Fight Master.
Okay.
And I got the opportunity to choose the coach that I wanted to work with, and I chose to work with Frank Shamrock.
Okay.
Because he's a legend of the game. And he brought two coaches with him. One of those coaches was Maurice Smith.
Okay.
Mo Smith was the very first heavyweight. I think he was the very first heavyweight champion or the second heavyweight champion in the UFC.
Okay.
He is one of the greatest kickboxers on the planet. And I had the opportunity to work with him. The grappling coach was a guy named Clint. He's a guy named Clint in Seattle. He owns his own gym. Never heard of him before in my life. I was so excited to work with Mo Smith. I could not, my coach was a big fan of his. It was crazy. So we go to do our first session together, and I don't know what the hell this guy's talking about. Like, we're on two totally different wavelengths. We cannot communicate at all. And it kind of broke my heart. I was so excited to work with this guy. And I had, like, he spent 15 minutes trying to explain to me the difference of how much weight ratio you should carry on your front leg and your back leg. And I just was totally lost in it. I just couldn't even pay attention to him. On the other hand, Clint, the guy I had no desire to work with at all, is someone who is now one of, like, the people that I look to as one of my most trusted advisors in life. If I have a dilemma that I just cannot figure out, I can ask Clint. Clint is very smart, and his grappling background and just his mentality, everything that his aura is just totally in line with mine. We're 100% on the same wavelength. So as far as like working with coaches go, some coaches have a style that's all their own, and it works great for them. When you run into a student that has, for example, my boxing coach that I worked with in Portland, his name's Andy Minsker. They made a movie, a documentary about him called Broken Noses. He took like this ragtag bunch of kids from, where was it? One of those little outer towns in Portland, and took them to the like nationals, you know. He was ranked #1 in the US the year I was born. Like, this guy did it. Okay. And when I met him, we started working together, and my boxing, like, I stopped doing jujitsu because I fell in love with boxing. This guy is another one of those people who, if I don't understand what's going on, I look to Andy. You know, what would Andy do? What would Andy say right here? This is, you know, and so, you know, two absolutely world-class strikers. One, I was unable to get any knowledge off of at all. The other one can do no wrong in my eyes, because we have the absolute same, like, when I throw a punch, I want to try to put your lights out with every single punch. I don't want to throw rabbit punches, and I don't want to throw this. I want to wreck stuff with every punch. And Andy's style matches up with that. He puts you in the position to land solid punches on people that end the fight. You know, and I was just, you know, this thing with the boat captain. Some people, if you look at football players, you have to yell at football players, and you have to call them babies, and you have to grind them into the ground. You have to do that to football players. You go to the tennis team, and you don't do that. You give them instruction. You tell them that their backhand needs to work on this. Then you go over to the track team, and the track team, we're all different. We may all be athletes, but if you go to the gym and you watch the girls volleyball team training together, and you watch how they interact with each other, they're all, Becky, good job. You got this, girl. You watch the football team train together, and it's, come on, pussy, get over that thing. Go, go, go. It works in both situations, because we're different people and we need different things. And the go, go, go guys are going to go to football and wrestling, and that's what they do. And the people who tend to be a little, you know, less boneheaded tend to go for things like track and field and tennis and sports that are not banging their head against the ground or against other people. But the guys that do bang their heads together, they need somebody standing there yelling at them, driving them into the ground, making them work hard. Because if nobody's doing that, they're knuckleheads. They're just going to get in trouble.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that's like, I don't know. I was thinking about when you were talking about which was the coach that gave you the 60-40 or like whatever.
Mo Smith.
Yeah, Mo. And you couldn't get it. And that's like, I identify with that in the, like, the individual style piece of it. And there was like, you know, when I was interested in wrestling and fighting, I definitely needed the coach who was gonna like help me. Like I found it most helpful to wrestle the coaches, right? Where they could like, they're just handling you, right? And you're trying like anything, but they're demonstrating that there's like something you don't know yet. So you go ahead and like get into that like worker self that thinks you can beat everything up, and they'll tire you right out. And that like, that kind of containment is what I think about. But that same like, and there's something to me that connects to the worker piece of like, and thinking about so many of my peers and in the fishing world, like I think one reason some people gravitate to some of these trades is not because they're like can't figure anything else out, but like the learning style that's there of like, I have to show you like, how do you swing this hammer, and you have to like sit with and work with a sledgehammer for a while before you understand like how it works with weight. And that's where I look into the like fitnessy worlds now and see like, okay, there's this person with a sledgehammer on a tire, and like that's feeling really cool for them. You're like, that's neat. But like boat style, like what about if you have to deliver that hammer blow and you're on your back and you like you're having to generate force in this way, right? And it's the like, that's the kind of in between I guess I'm trying to suss out here in like realizing the place that I think a lot of worker peers are coming from, of like hating life and being told that they've chosen a stupid line of work and like hurting themselves through it, and being like, but where's the more fightery ethos of like, okay, like I've got this amount weight that I have to deal with today. How am I going to do this? Like, I don't know. I think, did you ever watch Cool Hand Luke?
Yeah, I haven't. I've seen
Okay,
pieces
no,
of it,
it
and I
might
know
be a
all the
fun one for
quotes.
you if you like boxing and fighting and that kind of thing. But there's a scene where they're having to spread gravel. The whole inmate situation is having to spread gravel, and Paul Newman, Cool Hand Luke, is like, come on, like let's work right through it. And it's this like, I don't know, it's a movie obviously, but I get that. I have connection with that to like some work days where you're like, we have to move how much what? Like I was telling Chris, like the day for me starts on the fishing boat of like, you're taking on about 1,200 pounds herring, right? Into these boxes. Like I got to deal with them. Like, and then through the day, I'm going to be like dosing them out into little pockets. And you're just thinking about the whole stack of your day and being like, that can be really overwhelming unless I think like you start finding it in the like athlete style thinking that's like, okay, like I want to get to my next break time. I want to like beat my captain and like get faster than where he's able to go. And like, then I get more rest time. Like, I remember thinking about that in sports world. You're like, okay, like this is brutal, but how do I get to the place you get to the top, right? And you take less of a beating is the lesson, maybe. I don't know. It's not really a question.
I think like focusing on perfecting the process is something that has always worked for me. Like I'm not going out there to win a fight. I'm going out there to throw the best punches that I can throw. I'm going out there and like, if you look at a fight as like, I don't know, I just feel like breaking things down has always helped me.
Yeah.
If you look at too big of a, like if you think about a fight, it's 15 minutes.
Yep.
Do you know how hard it is to exercise continuously for 1 minute straight?
Yes.
And I'll do that for 15.
I know.
So if you've done your cardio on the way to the fight, like you should, you know how exhausting 15 minutes of work is going to be. And if your training partners are worth a crap, they have put you through Shark Tanks, where it's just you in the middle the whole time facing fresh guy after fresh guy after fresh guy. And so if you walk in the cage and you look at it and you go, shit, this is going to be 15 minutes of hell, then you're going to psych yourself out and it's going to be really hard for you to throw the first punch. But when I walk, I look at it like, okay, I got to go do a warm up and then I got to go do a walk. And then I got to get through the first round of the fight. And in order for me to get through the first round of the fight, I've got to do the best I can with my punching and the best I can with my breathing and the best I can with my grappling. If I focus on just doing the best I can at mixing those three things together, the outcome is going to be the same. You understand? Like, whether I win the fight or lose the fight is really irrelevant. It's, did I do a good job during the fight? And then you take that small broken down mentality and you expand it really big, and you go, did I win life or lose life? Or did I enjoy life? You see what I'm saying? Because once you're done with life, you know, you don't know that you're done with life. It just ends. So you don't really have time to sit there and go, did I just win that or did I just lose that? So instead of focusing on the winning or the losing of life, I just focus on throwing the punches the best that I can. And breathing as good as like, I know I have to breathe the whole time. So I got to focus on that. Because if I don't, I'm going to gas out and then I'm not going to be good at anything. So number one, focus on continuously breathing. While you're breathing, try to land really good punches if you're going to throw them. And then if you get the chance to take this guy down and submit him, do it. If he takes you down, grapple. You know, like, it's just, it's a contingency plan the whole time. It's like, hey, we're going to go out here and breathe. And eventually the guy's going to try to hit you and you got to move your head. Good job moving your head. Now try to hit this guy. You know, it's so you have to use your brain. You can't be stuck in one position or one mode or one mentality at all times. You have to expand and contract. You have to push and pull, and you have to think right and left. I have to give all I can give when I go to choke this guy, but I'm not going to give all I have chasing him across the mat to get the takedown, to get the choke. You see what I'm saying? I have to gauge these things, and fighting is like life. Like, you can't just say, I'm only going to be a boxer. Well, you can't just, I'm only going to go to church. That's all I'm going to do in life. I'm just going to take the church and just do that. Like, no, you have to go to the store too. And you have to go to the bathroom. And you have to do all the things in life. You can't just pick one thing and do that. You have to like balance. That's kind of like my big blinking red light right now in life that I look to is balance. Like, how can I balance? How can I balance between this complete alpha dickhead that I know lives inside of me, and this like super soft, like, I just pet kittens all day and just love everything. Like, because both of these people live inside of me, where I want, like, I understand when I see somebody get hit, you know, on the internet, I'm like, that guy got hit. But at the same time, I'm like, oh gosh, man, that poor guy, like, he's probably like hurt. He's going to have like a hospital bill. Like, poor guy. Like, oh, I feel so bad for him. But there's also that part of me that's like, you got hit, you know? So
I think that honesty is so refreshing, Mike, to me. And like, I feel like I navigate the world of men in this piece, whether it's in like the working world or wherever, where it's like either the super new agey guy that like I've learned a lot from and I've met friends with, but like that like doesn't have, like, won't admit, I guess, to that piece of the, like, that whatever that primal piece might be. And then the other side that's like, I feel like I'm pinballing between like the person who's like, you know, really into the fact that they got into a scrap before the day of fishing in the store buying their cigarettes and being like, I mean, I'm happy for you, but it sounds like that was an ineffective way to like figure out whatever you were trying to figure out. Like, and like, I can't imagine going through a 12-hour work day, like having taken one. Like, that sounds terrible to me. I have no interest in that. Like, I take enough bumps and bruises in my work day, thank you. And that's, it's just really refreshing to hear that honesty of like, because I do, and I think about that in the, like, the dynamic of the kind of like, the kind of work that I'm doing on the fishing boat, and what it is like physiologically, if you're like working that amount weight and you're like, or like in the training cycle, that plays into your hormonal balances. And like, I'm not an expert in that terrain, but it does play in. Like, I notice a definite difference through the season for me of like, you know, I get to the down, like it's different than cutting weight for fighting, right? but like try as hard as I can throughout the whole season. In just the 2 that I've done, I've gone from like 200 down to 170-ish over the course of the season. And that changed when you were talking about the cutting of weight, of like how that does change your psychology around it a little bit. And you're like, I can feel that like string tightening up as the season goes on, right? And as the heat goes on, like here we are in the middle of August, and like, oh, this is fun, like super fun to just sweat it out in a full, like that's the work garb for fishing, is basically a like weight cutting suit. You're in a plastic overalls, and like I'm a baby about the sun. Like I burn like crazy, so I've got a hood up the whole day. And like, I don't know, that was one of the like conscious training moments last year, was like, even though it's getting hot, I'm going to keep this sweatshirt on and like keep this sweatsuit on and manage my water, because I know I can manage my water. But if I get cooked outside, like I don't know what your ranch experience is, it doesn't work with me very well.
That's fun. Last October, nice cool October, I had a heat stroke in Tampa.
Yeah.
Yeah, like full on, like complete body cramped up, like had to go to the hospital, IVs, like bad heat stroke. And so like having spent so much time in the sauna and like I know what I'm capable of. So I didn't have any idea that complete shutdown was on its way. I got a cramp and I was just like, that's just part of it. No big deal. We'll just drink some water. I've got some electrolytes in the truck and I'll just, mix some into my water, and no big deal. And after 2 days of no big deal, of just being like, oh, it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. It'll be okay. Like not really addressing the situation like I should, full on heat stroke. So while I applaud the toughness and like, hey, I'm just going to stick it out, you also need to like kind of be careful when it comes to the heat, when it comes to like, sweating out. Like, because I've had people, I've been helping people cut weight in a sauna before, and they just drop. And then if you just drop on a fishing boat, if your head hits that side rail, or you go over, or you get hooked in the pec with a big needle, like, man, that's
I think that's been that's part of what I'm saying, is the like finding, I was in a hard personal spot and didn't really want to be around too well, and finding fishing like was sort of a necessity to get back in the body in that way and figure out those management pieces. For me, like that's been part of the dynamic, is like I step on, like you're coming into the fight room, you don't have a clue of what's going on. I step on the fishing boat, I don't have a clue. And like trying to learn, as you're saying, like, give me the thing to do, I'll do it as best I can. Then what's the next thing? And for a while that keeps my brain occupied and keeps me out of some of those like rage spots. And then I learn better what I'm doing, and now I have more time to think. And it's like, and it's that kind of back and forth of like, all right, how am I going to keep my brain occupied to either get the, like, not win, right, and not focus on that, but like, is there a new way that I can do this with less energy? What's the way that I can win that game way too?
You're looking to be more efficient and more productive. And I totally get that, because in this, and what I do now, one of the things I have to do is I have to go up to the plant that makes some of our equipment, and I have to assemble certain pieces of equipment. We have these things, they're sliding gates. We call them block doors. And basically when you're separating cattle from each other so that you can give them shots or get them loaded up on a trailer, you put them in this alley. And you can put so many in each section of alley, but you want to keep them separated for the most part so they don't hurt each other inside those sections. Well, it's a process to put those together. And when I first started doing this, my father-in-law said, my record is 7 block doors in one day. And I was like, okay, great. And so
I'll do 20.
I went up there, and my only mission in life from that moment on was to build more than 7 block doors in one day, because I absolutely had to do more than he did, because I'm better than he is, because I'm better at production, because that's my ego biting me in the ass. But my record is 13 in 3 hours. So
What?
Yeah, 13 in 3 hours because
Yeah.
I am production minded. When I show up, I get all the rollers out and I fix all the rollers. Then
Yeah.
I take all the frames over and I church up all the frames. And then I start the assembly. And once I start the assembly, it goes like chocolate melting on a hot piece of, metal. It just
Yeah.
goes so
Yeah.
quick
Yeah. Yeah.
because I did the thing. I staged everything up and I went through the proper production procedures to make my work easy and fast.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you can, if you, what you have to do, that's what you're trying to do. That's like you're talking about hitting the sledgehammer on the tire, but I don't have to hit a tire. I have to lay on my back and hit the
Yeah.
floorboards because I'm underneath the house, or
Yeah.
I'm on a fishing boat and I have to sway
Yeah.
side to side while I'm hitting upwards. That's
Right.
when when I used to remodel houses, when I first learned how to shrimp, which is a jujitsu move where you
Yeah.
push yourself away from your opponent laying on the ground.
Yep.
I would shrimp from one side of a house to the other side of the house, underneath it, putting insulation in the floorboards or spreading plastic over the ground. I would shrimp all day long.
Right.
And I tell you what, there's nobody that's better at shrimping than I am. So that's just, I found something and applied it that I really enjoyed. Jujitsu. I really enjoy jujitsu and I want to be good at it. So I'm going to spend as much time as I can getting good at jujitsu, but I also have to work.
Right.
So how can I apply jujitsu to my work?
Yep.
And then I'm really good at this thing at work. How can I apply that to my jujitsu to make me better at that as well?
Yeah.
And so it all comes back to that big red blinking light that says balance.
Yeah.
What are you gonna like? Be strong, but also be flexible, but also be caring, but also stand up for yourself. Take no shit. Give no shit. Like you have all these different directions that you have to find balance in.
Yeah.
You kind of gotta figure your shit out, and to do that, you need more than one thing. You need to be able to take fishing and use it to learn how to do this, and then use doing this to make your fishing better. And then bring in this third thing, and it will make both of those things better, and those things will make that thing better. And that's kind of like relationships with people. Like your life would be really crappy if you just had you by yourself all the time. But when you incorporate other people in, now you have conversations and other ideas, and like this group. Like if we were all just like, hey, bicep curls every day for the rest of our lives. Like how dumb would that be, right?
Yeah.
But we have people who go, hey, what if you put that weight down and turn your hand over the other way, and okay, now you're doing something totally different. Well, what if instead of pulling the weight, you push the weight?
Yeah.
And now we have, so many different. We have balance. I mean, really, but at the same time, you've got these pinhead people that go, this is the only way. No, this is the only way. No, this is the only way. Why are there so many ways if there's only one way? Why are there so many roads if there's only one place to go?
I hear you.
There's so many places that you can go. All you have to do is go.
Yeah. Yeah, stepping back to just a minute ago when you were talking about the importance of these kind of relationships and conversations. Like I only just met Chris a couple weeks ago in terms of reaching out and being like, exactly this. I was sitting here and having these kinds of conversations with some peers and not having that the compatibility that I'm finding here, right? Like some different directions, like not slighting those conversations at all, but not this sort of like, oh, that's cool, like tell me more, sort of like, like I don't have time for that, I want to open another beer, I want to whatever, and being like, okay, like I don't know, I like to think about this, and I want to like both make my work experience easier and less injurious to myself, just because I want to do other stuff when I'm not at work, like besides take care of myself. And I want that for other people too. Like I'm looking at the really radical way that, like, here on this island, there's not a doctor accepting new patients, right? So I'm sitting here in the midst of COVID with that as a medical reality, right? Like I took myself off insurance because it was better for me to spend that money seeing a physical therapist when I needed care than to not be able to make an appointment, you know? And so that's what's amazing about finding this specific group. And then also this like mobility, movement, wellness, like, it's people coming from so many different backgrounds, but able to do this. And that's what, like, it was a challenge to myself. Like I submitted something to share for writing to Chris, and she was like, oh yeah, let's do it. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to put myself out there. Then as soon as I did, was like, oh, I'll read about this guy, Mike. Oh, he's got this like back and forth that I'm interested in. I want to reach out and see if he wants to talk. And like, that's scary for me, right? Like man wise, as you were talking about, like being the dude who goes into the party and is like, I'm excited about something. Like, I don't know. I want to talk with my feelings. And like, I don't know if that's true for you, but like, it's pretty hard to get like, especially new person. Like this has been awesome to talk with someone who I'm totally fresh, new to, but be able to go back and forth like this. So I don't know. Thank you, Chris.
Chris, are there any other fighters in the group?
So there's a BJJ person, Margot Ciccarelli, who is like competes, but I don't think there's any others. But she's very much on that line of like artist athlete, like, and is out there about it. But yeah, I mean, and I thank you kind of for, that's the point. The point of all of this was to be like, hi, and it's been so lovely to just sit here and not have to intervene and just like literally watch this interaction and this kind of almost like this premiere that's happening. So did you have thoughts on like getting the fighters together or something, Mike?
No, well, I'm just kind of making a point as to what he was just saying. Like, this is not normal for guys to do, like especially guys in a more I don't really know, like I don't want to say alpha, like we're better than other people, but like this alpha mentality, like fighters, you know, like you know, if I can't get over it, I'll just get through it, you know. And so for guys, especially guys who, like you were saying before, you learn a lot from the new agey kind of guys, but at the same time, like, you know, that they don't have that sense of like fortitude or that like the discipline. I don't know what the word is or the thing is that I'm looking for. Well, I don't
either. I'm not trying to insult anyone. I'm just
this
like
Cro-Magnon mentality or whatever that tells me like, oh, beat my chest and ego, just ego. It is, I guess that's what it is. You know, this strong driving ego and pride that you absolutely must have if you want to be good at anything. If you want to be good at something in any way, you have to say, I want to be good at this. I'm going to spend my time working on this thing, like, because I care about it. And you could say that ego is caring about things probably more than you should care about things, you know, because our ego makes us care about how much hair we have and does our skin the right color, and you know, my toenails are, oh no, I got fungus on my toenail, like I don't want anybody to ever see that, you know. Like those are things that, like, that's so crazy. That's your ego caring about things that mean absolutely nothing. It is the love of uselessness. I mean, is that
a Mike original? Is that I've never heard that before.
The love of uselessness?
Yeah.
I guess so.
I like it. I'm gonna carry that with me. Holy cow!
I mean, if you think of it, like, so 1 year ago, I was completely opposite of what I am right now. Okay. I was mentally and physically unhealthy. I was doing the same job, same people, same circumstances, except I was fat. I was 250 pounds. I'm 185 right now. I was borderline suicidal. I was on the phone with my girlfriend, my wife Maggie, and I told her I was thinking about driving the truck off the interstate bridge. I was miserable. I hated everything in my life 1 year ago today. And then I knew that I had to get back into jiu-jitsu. I knew that what had happened was I went to a jiu-jitsu school here where I live, and I trained there one time, and I said, you know what, these guys are not on my level. So I didn't train anymore for a year because of my ego saying that these guys were not as good as me. I got worse at jiu-jitsu because of they weren't good enough. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
And by me not doing jiu-jitsu, I got very fat and unhealthy. And when I started to get unhealthy and fat, guess what I started to do then? I started to drink a lot every day. I was driving my truck down the road when I got pulled over by a Texas state trooper with a Corona bottle in my hand. Yeah. So like it's a downward spiral for me if I stop taking care of myself.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that changed everything was, instead of driving my truck off that interstate bridge, I had reached out to these guys at 10th Planet, a jiu-jitsu school here, and I had an appointment to go see them when I got back into town. And so my need to not miss an appointment saved my life.
Yeah.
And then getting, back into the gym where I didn't know anybody. This is a whole new crowd. I don't know any of these guys, but they know me because I've been on national television. So I'm walking in with a target on my back. I've got all these young studs that just want to kill this old lion that just walked into the gym. You see what I'm saying? And so, and I'm fat and I'm unhealthy and I haven't trained in a year. So my ego just got brutally mushed to pieces when I showed up at the gym. And that's exactly what I needed. The reason I needed that was because I wanted to be better than my father-in-law at his game. I wanted to be better than, everybody else at this. And I wanted to be the top dog in this new field that I wasn't the top dog in. And it was driving me down into the ground. It was killing me. And it was just ego. It was me loving uselessness. What's the point of me being better than the guy that created the game?
Yeah.
That's useless.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be here to learn how to do this so I can take it over. If I want to compete with somebody, it's not the guy that's giving me the reins to the cart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the ego that I had as a fighter bled over into my life, and I had to beat that ego back through fighting. I had to find fighting again to kill the ego that was ruining my work life. So it's all so intertwined. Your balance.
Yeah.
Balance,
absolutely.
between the killer in me and the kitten in me.
Yeah.
There's got to be that balance, and killing your ego is the first step, the biggest, most crucial step to whatever you want to do. If you want to be a writer, if you want to be a fisherman, if you want to be a fighter, you've got to first crush that ego and say, I know nothing about this.
Yeah.
Where do I start?
Yeah.
The other thing that you have to realize is there is no magic pill.
No.
There is no 3 easy steps to becoming a master at anything. If you want to be a master fisherman, you just got to put in the reps. You got to put in the reps. You got to show up every single day and put in your 10,000 reps and get to where you establish yourself. And then when you want to get better, you got to put 10,000 reps in on getting better. And then you got to put 10,000 reps in on getting better. And so,
I think that's the place that I'm finding is the in-between is because reality is there was a huge fishing boom here that started in the early 2000s and has cooked along okay. But I'm entering the game late, right? Fish are crazy. They do other things. They have their own plan and we like to go get them all. I don't know what's happening. If I was if people here in town were hearing me talk like this, they'd be like, shh, there's lobsters here forever. Don't like, and I'd be like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, they've been around forever, man.
Yeah, I mean, have, but like, we're pretty good at catching things up, or we're good at catching the bait up, but whatever. The point is, I'm finding the game to be that, like, holy cow, ego killing, ego crushing for me has looked a lot like whack-a-mole of like, I thought I did it. And like, I'm learning, like, I'm never done with that game. That thing is going to like pop up. I mean, that's what you spoke to in your writing that again, like drew me out was like, yeah, it's, oh, there it is. Like, oh, there's another one. Like, like, okay. Like,
Yeah, your ego is it's like you know, it's like it's like graduating high school, right? When you're a kid, you think that's the end. We did it. We graduated. But then you realize, oh shit, I gotta get a job now. I gotta like, now it gets harder. And that's what killing your ego is like. It's gonna get like, it doesn't get easier to kill your ego. It actually gets harder because once you kill one piece of your ego, another piece grows and says, look what I did. I can beat ego anytime I want. You see what I'm saying? And so it's a constant battle. And as the ego gets beat down, the ego grows. And so it's like a balloon. You can push down in one spot, but it's going to come up in the other spots.
Yeah.
So, I mean, ego is not, it's not a thing that can just be squished down one time. Like I said, it's like a water balloon. If you put pressure here and push down, it's going to come up around you. And so that balance thing where you just get on top and don't sink too far in one direction, you just stay balanced on top and keep that ego at a working level because you have to have some ego.
You do. And I think that's, for the fishing piece for me, like part of it was just finding ego was like, that's something I found in that, like, it's cold, it's wet, I'm like stuffing like piles of dead fish into bags. Like, this is horrible. Like, this is just the worst. I mean, like, well, okay, like here you are. You're gonna have to like this part to get to the next part. And that,
you found out that it's the worst. Now, what are you gonna do with it? Like,
and that's actually, I think that's a funny metaphor that I think a lot about here in the lobstering world, because like we hear about like rock bottoms and hard bottoms and like that sort of thing. Here, rock bottom means there might be big lobsters, like that. There might be big lobsters and you fish them and it might be hard on your gear and you might need a smaller boat to get in, but there's an interest in the rock bottom and the hard bottom. And I think I draw a parallel into the like biting world of like some of those more destructive tendencies in my past, right? Like part of the reason I was going in there, part of the reason I wanted that head knocking was, I don't know, I was trying to feel and find something. And there were probably better ways to do it, but I respect the part of me that was searching, you know, and that's, so I'm glad I don't have to search through, like, I've been playing around learning to juggle a little bit and I clocked myself pretty good in the head and that was enough for me for recently. It was like, I'm pretty good with like not taking strikes to the head right now. That's good.
I learned to juggle from a guy that was doing Z Health with me when I was training. And I still do. I juggle tennis balls though, because I don't want to get hurt. But you know what's funny is, I lost my train of thought there.
That's all right. That's all right. I mean, but that's I think one more point that I like when I think about the parallels to the fitness world of like I hear people talking about like why juggle, why do that? That doesn't make any sense. And I think about it from a worker perspective, and it's like, why juggle? Because like, whoa, there's the boat and the thing like went out of your hand and you got to go get it. And like, if you don't have that skill, you don't have that thing. Like, so it's, I don't know, just keeping it within the everyday, I guess. And like, that's the way that I find fun in it is like, if I don't have tracking movement patterns and like learning to refine them wherever I am, then those ego chains, then those like self-destructive chains, they're right there, you know? So it's like, just keeping on learning that, like,
it's easy for you to fall back into what's comfortable, and what's comfortable for you is, you know, for all of us is to be lazy and be comfortable. Like comfort is comfortable, but comfort is a cage. because if you don't get outside of comfortable areas, you don't know what you're capable of. Like, did you know that you could stand on a moving boat before you got on a moving boat? No,
Right.
it's not
Right.
comfortable. It's
Right.
very scary. And
Yeah.
that's like one people are like, for the whole time I was fighting, people were, why do you fight? Why do you get in that cage and let them lock you in there? Why do you do that? Because it scares the shit out of me. And it lets me know that I am still alive. I am a human and I am alive and I have a pulse and I am scared right now. And this is the scariest thing I can imagine, is being locked into a cage with another human being that knows how to kill me and wants to try to do it. Right? Is there anything worse than that? So you have that information. What are you going to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so for me, fighting started off, the idea came as like, I've been fighting in bars and parking lots and stuff. Like, why not get paid for it? Like, super chromat, like super laughing at people that get hit, like real asshole, like just young Mike, and so, why not get paid for fighting? Like, instead of getting in trouble for it, just go get paid to do it, and so, like, I guess, like, they say necessity is the mother of all invention or whatever. Like, I didn't have a job at the time. I saw that people were on TV making money for fighting. Mm-hmm. Sounds like a good idea to me. Mm-hmm. And so I got in a cage. I went to a gym and I was like, hey, put me in a cage. I didn't realize that it was going to take, once you join a gym, they're not just going to let you go and represent them in a fight with you have no experience. You have to train for a year. They have to approve you. Then there's the state commission. They have to say, yes, you're healthy enough to fight. You've got to get eye exams and the physicals, and like, holy cow, you have to pay money to do this. Yeah. And you have to have so many amateur fights before you can go professional and actually make money. So now this is an investment now. I went into this thing thinking I was going to make money. I thought it was going to be a job. No, it's actually work. It's actually costing me money to do this. But what happened was I felt alive. Mm-hmm. When somebody was choking me, mm-hmm. and I thought that I might die, I knew I was alive. Mm-hmm. And so knowing there's the possibility that you could die makes you feel alive. It lets you know that you're not dead, because there's the chance that you could die. So having that, like, to me, is refreshing. That's why I enjoy getting in there with a bull. That's why I enjoy getting in there and fighting in a cage, and still going and doing jujitsu. And like, these young bucks that are coming up now they've got speed and stamina and strength and youth. And I'm the old lion, I'm like, I got a couple tricks up my sleeve, but there's going to come a day where the tricks aren't going to work anymore. They're just going to be beating me up.
Right. So, well, that's something that I think is like a little bit lost in some of the like hype of it. And I know there's hype of it for a reason. I know UFC, MMA is business, but lost, I think, like, every time I get to the end of the fight, right? And I'm not like I said, new agey, but like when the fighters are hugging it out, sorry to slip it up, is like, that's the part, especially now in this moment, where I feel like we need, like, that's kind of where I want to start, is like, you want to care for your fighting partner, because you want to roll with them again. You want to kill each other in the mat, but you don't really want to kill each other. Like, you do, but the kitten is still there, right? Yes. And that's the thing of, like, I don't know, training that, I think, and when I'm looking at younger people, whether they're like fishing young folks and like however they're taking care of themselves. I was telling Chris, I had an experience of coaching basketball a couple of years ago, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I needed a job, I needed money. I had no idea. But the amount that they wanted to scrap with each other, and having to be like, no, like, don't, because this is basketball and that's not how it works. But also thinking in the back of my head, like, how rad if there was like the fighting basketball team where it's like, in practice, we fight and then we play ball. Like, I don't know, that's the kind of like inventive thing that I see happening in these like think movement and in the like movement mobility worlds that like organized sport over here is like, no, team sports are clean and fun. And you're like, yeah, but look at all the jersey pulling. Look at all the like how much people want to like, people are looking for that tactility, right? And like maybe they think they want to get it through getting choked, but maybe they want to get it just like, I don't know. That's what I mean about like wrestling the coaches, right? Was like that feeling of like, I can do whatever I want with my whole something. And this person is just like calm as can be. They're there. Like,
you know, I'd much rather roll or, you know, spar with the highest level guy in the room than the lowest level guy in the room. And it's not, you know, the reason is because the highest level guy in the room is not going to hurt me. The lowest level guy in the room is going to hurt me.
yeah.
And it's because the guy with the lowest training doesn't know how he's going to hurt me. He's going to accidentally hurt me through his clumsiness, or you see what I'm saying? Or he's going to go too hard on a submission and he's going to hurt me because he didn't know where to stop. Whereas with the black belt, with the professor, you know, he knows exactly how much pressure he's applying because he's done it 100 million times. He knows the difference between a neck crank and a choke. There's a totally different thing. When you start cranking somebody's neck, you're hurting their spine. When you choke somebody, you're cutting off their air or their blood in their carotid arteries to their brain. Very rarely are you choking somebody through their airway. That's just like, how long can you hold your breath? Everybody can hold their breath that long. Why would you try to cut off somebody's air? You don't. You cut off their blood. So a clean choke is cutting off both carotid arteries, and then they just slowly fall asleep because they don't have any blood going to their brain. But a neck crank, that's where you take somebody's spine and you hurt it. You crank it out of alignment.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I mean. It's like in the everyday,
as a good
just in the
training
everyday
partner,
world, like, sorry.
As a good training partner, I'm not going to neck crank my training partners. However, if you and I are competing, I will neck crank the shit out of you because I want to win.
Yep, and that's what you take on. That's what you take on when you're consenting to the fight. Like, and that's, I think, what's lost a little bit. And I don't know. It's like in the everyday sense, right? That's the guy that I'm trying to tap into. It's like you're saying, the person who's coming up at you that doesn't know any better in the gym. And then you're thinking about like the you from before who's like getting after people to get in that fight and being like, that's the person that when I encounter that person now in my life of trying to feel like, what's the right response in those out of ring, out of wherever scenarios, when you're trying to de-escalate the thing that you're seeing happen and be like, I don't know what the right man thing to do is there, but I do know I don't want anyone to get hurt here. Like,
you want to know what works really, really great with aggressive assholes?
Sure.
Mirroring.
Mirroring.
When someone is getting super aggressive, like, hey, you want me to kick your ass? Kick my ass. The last 1 to 3 words of something that someone says, or the important 1 to 3 words of something that someone said, works extremely well with aggressive people because it makes them slow down and think. And usually aggressive people are not very good thinkers, so it slows them down even more. Mirroring. Like if your boss comes in and says, hey, I want you to make 2 copies of everything that we did today. And you go, I'm sorry, 2 copies? You're not saying why, but you're saying why. Now he has to explain himself. Now this aggressive guy that just came through and he has to take a step back and explain, well, I want 1 copy for me and I want 1 copy for the customer. 1 for the customer? You're saying the customer asked for a copy? See, now he's having to slow down and think and actually talk and process things. It's called mirroring. And I learned it from an FBI negotiator, and it works great.
Yeah.
Super aggressive people always mirror what they say. The last 1 to 3 words. If I come at you with an aggressive statement, mirror that. It will make me stop. Oh, wait a second. He said something. I have to respond to that thing. What did he say? Okay. You're basically You're saying why, but you're not saying why, because why is an accusation in any language.
Mhm.
If you ask your boss
I
or
gotta
your
remember
friend
that. Yeah.
why, when they tell you something, it's going to be like an attack. But
Yeah.
if you just mirror what they say, you're asking why without asking why. And you slow everything down.
I think to kind of bookend this like lovely conversation and kind of to
wrap it up, maybe.
No, it's been excellent. I've loved it, but I almost like we could go on forever, but then it's one of those things like to me. So we could always have part twos, but I guess like a central circular question would be kind of like right now in this male ego thing, and the question for both of you, how do you identify and interact with risk? So if I were to start that off with Mike, right? Looks like young Mike, let's go get it. Let's see what happens. Now, and I'm not sure how old you are.
Old.
How do you I guess analyze and interact with risk in this time and place?
It's weird. I think about this movie called Big Fish, where this kid gets to see the way he's going to die. He gets to see his future, and he gets to see the way that he's going to die. And something that he says in that movie is, well, I've seen how I'm going to die, so I know that I can do anything else except for that and get away with it because that's how I'm going to die. So at some point, I just chose how I was going to die and then decided that nothing else was going to take me out. So when it comes to risk, they're really, I don't gauge things in risks. I just, like, if it looks like fun, do it. Well, the thing that I have now as older Mike is just keeping myself in check morally. Like, that looks like fun, go do it. Is that going to hurt somebody else? Or if everybody else did this, what would the effect be? Because walking on the grass may look like fun, but if we all decided to walk across the grass, we'd kill the grass and there'd be no more grass. So now my life is less about risk assessment and more about like making sure I'm not harming anyone else with my wild and outlandish risk-taking ways, like risk-taking. I mean, what's going to happen? You're going to fall down, you're going to get hurt, you get back up. Like, I've broken bones. They put a cast on it. It healed. I'm not scared of breaking bones. I caught on fire when I was 15. Didn't kill me. So I'm not scared of catching on fire anymore. I've fallen through a frozen pond, when I was 8 or 9. That didn't kill me. So it's not so much, like I said, it's not so much how do I assess risk, because if it looks fun, I want to do it. Jumping off things is fun. Like, skateboarding looks like so much fun to me, but I am the worst skateboarder on the planet. I cannot even stand on a skateboard when it's still. So when it comes to that one thing, I just don't do it. But anything else, I'll try it as long as I'm not hurting anyone else, or I'm not doing something that if everyone else did it, it would cause there to be a problem.
Awesome. Rufus.
Yeah. I don't know. Before I answer my own answer, I gotta just echo the two parts that I've heard from Mike of just like that, the earlier part of open admission of like the kitten and the whatever else. I don't know what else he said. Like admitting that they're both there, right? And then like that strong conviction of like, I am not choosing to hurt someone else in this moment, in this place. That's not my role. That's not my place. That feels like a really important piece. That like, I think for me, my own risk is like, I had so little awareness as a young person. Like, we had different experiences, but like a lot of what you were saying, I had a mixed family, like back and forth between parents' houses. Dad's house was different than mom's house. Like, I didn't spend a lot of time developing, I think, awareness of risk very well. Like, I grew up in a little bit of risky scenarios and like just normalized a lot of risk. And then, I don't know, just like found myself, I feel like I fell through the first huge part of my life, just kind of like, oh, like it's over here. And then like, oh, this is scary. Like, oh, I gotta go over there. And so now that it's come into the conscious place, right, where it's like and the nuts and bolts of fishing has given me that to like, like you were saying, like you fall on the boat, like this is everything on the boat wants to hurt you. Like everything is moving and everything is sharp and everything is hard, and you learn to like mitigate that. And that's the like, I guess I'm coming to the place of like accepting that it's a natural part of the world is risk. If you want to do something other than pet your kitten on the bed, which is like, it's nice, it's awesome, it's really restorative to your soul. There's a lot more to life. And that piece of trying to figure out like, yeah, physical risk, like that thing. Skateboards are still fun to me. Like I love balance games like that. But like I said, it's like when I'm out there and like trying to learn to juggle, and what I'm trying to learn to juggle I was telling Chris about them, like they're the bottoms of the lobster traps. They're called trap runners. So it's like a piece of a picket fence, like 2 inches, like piece of oak though. And so you're 4 foot long chunk of something, and I'm trying to learn to like juggle and spin those. So when that's like coming into me, I'm aware of like, oh, if I'm getting on the boat tomorrow, I don't want to work this skill to where I'm hurting myself. I want to push that risk edge really slowly in a way that feels like, when young Rufus looks at it, he's like, you come on, like push it. And older Rufus is like, I don't know, I've gotten enough like bad splinters, and like I've dealt with black eyes, and like that's not going to help me in my workday tomorrow. In my workday, I need to show up to my captain, to the boat, like ready to go. And that's the like, I think it's prioritizing a little bit of like, I want risk, I want that taste, absolutely, but I also want to be like waking up in the morning like feeling ready for those multiple hours, if that's where I'm headed.
It's funny that you say that, because along those lines, my very first MMA fight, I lost. This guy got me in a choke that I'd never seen before. Mm-hmm. And so that was on a Saturday night. The next Monday, I went to the gym and I went to my coach and I said, hey, would you do me a favor? And he said, yeah. And I said, would you choke me out? And he didn't understand. Like, what? Why? And I said, I want to know exactly what time I have. Like I want to know. Do you know what happens when you go to sleep from a choke? Right. It just goes black. It closes down in on you. Like, it's kind of like the cable went out. You know, it just shuts down. And then you go into like a dream state where you think you're sitting on the couch watching TV, but then all of a sudden you wake up and you're back in a gym. And I had him do that to me because I needed to see how far I could go before I would actually go out. I needed to know how long could I be in that choke, because nothing hurt me more than tapping out. The moment of just saying, you got me, hurt more than anything ever, more than any punch in the face, more than any kick in the nuts, more than anything ever. It hurts to tap out. And so I wanted to know what's the most dangerous thing. The most dangerous thing is going to sleep. Well, put me to sleep. And then I woke up and I was fine. And so I realized that this is how far I can go before I need to tap out. This is how much I can take before I have to say stop. And the same thing for you. If you figure out what your breaking point is, how long can I fight this before I go to sleep, is what you need to know. So that when you're out there, you can fight as long as you can without giving up and creating the most painful thing you can ever feel, which is giving up, right? Mm-hmm. Or the other most painful thing you can feel, which is going out. Mm-hmm. You know, for you, going out is much worse than me going to sleep on a soft mat, right? You go out, you go off the boat or whatever happened. You know what I'm saying? So, sure. So you want to find that point between the worst pain in the world and going to sleep. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Because, I mean, and that's in everything, not just in fishing, but in everything in life. I need to know, how far can I go? You know, what is the zone that I can operate in where I feel like I gave my all, but I didn't die. balance.
Yeah.
Perfect recap. Well,
Yeah.
guys, we should do this again. This was really, really excellent. I've just met Rufus, and I know, Mike, I've known you for a bit, but we haven't had too many like down deep conversations, and it was just excellent. So
Yeah, I really appreciated this.
yeah,
This.
maybe we'll do
Thank
a
you.
part two on a different kind of vein and topic, but it was
Sure.
awesome.
Sure. I really appreciate it. All right. Well, any closing words, Chris, that you want to say, or Mike? Or...
Just thank you. It's interesting as a female listening to you, and I'm definitely on like the masculine side of the female. But it was just interesting again to hear males talk, because I don't. And if we kind of did this like spectrum, there would be, in general, there'd be like manly Mike, right? And then there's, an actual female. And then Rufus is in this kind of like, this sensitive artist who's trying to understand the world in this nice middle. So I just really appreciated being witness, and then again, being exposed to your perspective and your experience, because it's like the extremes. It allows you to recognize where the true middle is when you've been on all the points outside of the circle.
Yeah. I'm just curious, when you hear us articulating that, like, really wanting to get into that kind of scrap, is that part of your like psyche and mentality in any capacity?
Man, like, like it's very logical to me. I'm a very logical person. Like, if there's chaos going outside, you don't go outside. Like, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to be risky. Like, why be like, let's keep the percentages at like zero. And so again, I cannot say that that's just female. That's just personally me.
Sure.
Someone, you want to survive, and you want to, you make your life pretty good, and you want to ride it out as long as you can. Like, it doesn't need to be awesome. Like, I'm fine with the way it is. Like, I think it's awesome. It might be like a million times better, but I'm not really like, this is like, I live in good enough, I think. It's a general, and then I want to like push out slightly, but I don't want to make big leaps. But that's, again, just me. I cannot speak for the female race.
I think that boys should be encouraged to go up and push the line of chaos, to touch it, to see what it, so that you, like they say, like the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fires. I think that means something. And I think that that's a very important thing for young men, is to be encouraged not to fight each other because they don't like each other or they disagree about something. They should fight each other so that they know what it's like to get hit in the face. They know that they're not going to get broken by getting hit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think there's something very, very important about, teaching young men that they're tougher than, they're not glass. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to break. Like, go out there and see that you are resilient and become more resilient because of it. That's my like outlook. Like, I think that, and not just young men, I think every person should seek that chaos, that line between chaos and order, and flirt with it and see how far you can get, how close you can get to it without getting burned.
Well, and now that you put it that way, if I were to describe, I want to avoid hardship. Right? So if that's, again, at different ends of the spectrum, like, I don't want bad. So in comparison to that, like, good is way above it. So like, why would I? Yeah. And again, just mentality.
Yeah.
Difference.
Yeah. I guess I think about the everyone in that of like, in combatives, like I didn't spend a whole lot of time with wrestling. Like I said, I would have liked to in some ways, but I didn't have a real good sense of self-control, and there were aspects of the sport that didn't work. But I think, again, like stitching back into the movement piece is like, that's where all kids should be encouraged to the like active roll around, jump out of trees, like to the best of your abilities. And that's where I try to be like careful with language too, because I know that like some kids they don't come into the world with two hands or any hands. And that's like, I want to be sensitive to that too. That individual deserves like to experience their body in any kind of way. And like fighting is a great way. And I think the fact of like a big soft mat is like the thing that I come back to when I think about the wrestling room, is like, awesome. Like, put kids in rooms with soft mats and like, yeah, pull each other's hair. Like, see how it feels. Like, it doesn't feel good. You're gonna get yours pulled back too. Like, and that's, I don't know. I want that for, like, when I think about my experience in school, that's the like of like, oh, I needed to be active like the whole 8-hour day, not like gym class, recess. You know, I could have been running around the whole time. But anyway, I know we're trying to wrap up here, but I'm fighting it back into the conversation.
No, it was really, really good all around. I really think, you know, as we let this digest a bit, and this kind of series picks up, I would love to come back. If not just us three, but maybe add, you know, I think it might be interesting to add like Mars into the fold. Another, she's the BJJ champion, like all kind of ultra, might be really cool. So I'll try to get her wrangled in, and we'll definitely do this again.
That could be fun.
I'm definitely going to think about this as I, you know, after this, I'm going to be thinking about all this, and then I'm going to think, oh, we should have talked about that.
Yeah.
We should have talked about this.
Awesome.
So,
Always.
Yeah.
So
We should definitely do it again.
We'll just part two it.
Great. Well, it's been great talking with you guys. I really appreciate it. I'm going to have a lot to think about as well.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks again, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Nice to meet you, Mike. Take care, Chris.